Om Tat Sat. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading Brahman, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, to sage Narada and all other sages and saints, and to each of you divine soul watching today's satsang. We are currently studying Narada Bhakti Sutras. We are on chapter number 4, and today we will be studying Sutra number 82. This is the glory of one-pointed devotion. Commentaries by my Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So let's get started. Sutra 82, Narada Bhakti Sutras. This is a slightly longer sutra, but we will still repeat it twice. And the sutra is Guna Mahatmaya Sakti, Rupa Sakti, Puja Sakti, Smarana Sakti, dasya sakti, sakhya sakti, vatsalya sakti, kanta sakti, atmanivedana sakti, tanmayata asakti, parama viraha asakti, rupa ekadha api ekadashadha bhavati. Again, guna mahatmaya sakti, rupa sakti, पूजा शक्ति, स्मरणा शक्ति, दास्या शक्ति, साख्या शक्ति, वात्सल्या शक्ति, कांता शक्ति, आत्मनिवेदना शक्ति, तन्मयता शक्ति, परम विरह आसक्ति, रूप एकधा अपि एकदशधा भवति. So, long sutra, but the meaning is that there are 11 kinds of attachments or love of God that we have. Bhakti, though of one form, expresses itself as 11 major types of attachment. Attachment to the glorification of the blessed qualities of God, attachment to the divine form, to worship, to constant remembrance of God, attachment as a servant to the master, as a friend, as a parent's love for his child, as a wife's love for her husband, or a lover's love for the beloved, attachment to the complete surrender of God, to supreme absorption in divinity, and attachment to the experience of intense pain at the slightest separation from Him. So I've covered these very quickly, and we will soon dissect each one so you can understand the depth of this sutra. Very beautiful, very deep. And all kinds of devotion, different kinds, 11 total of devotion. Sage Narada has explained that a devotee can go through. He can go through some or all of them depending on what stage he is in. Advanced devotees are immersed in divine love. Yet they may or may not experience all the bhakti sentiments. The gopis of Vrindavana, for example, expressed all the 11 types of devotion in their lives. They were so devoted and so deep into this process. But following is a list of devotees classified according to the 11 types of attachment referred in this sutra. Keep in view, however, that this classification indicates only the predominating devotional attitudes practiced by the devotees. Although the list includes only devotees mentioned in ancient scriptures, modern saints and devotees could be similarly classified. So Narada Bhakti Sutras is an ancient Bhakti Sutra, but this knowledge is universal. This kind of emotions exist even today, so they can be very well implemented into our daily lives. So the first one is Guna Mahatmaya Sakti. Guna means the attributes. Sage Narada, Sage Vyasa, Shuka, Deva, Yagyavalkya, Kakabhushundi, Shesha, Shandilya, Bhishma, Parikshita, and all others were devotees who found unceasing delight in the glorification of God, in singing the praises of God. So all these sages that I just mentioned, Sage Narada himself and all these other sages, are always singing the glory of God, and that is called satsanga. narrating God's glories and getting into the holy scriptures and increasing our bhakti. So that is Guna Mahatmaya Sakti. The second one is called Rupa Sakti, the form. So women of Vrija were fascinated by the enchanting beauty of Lord Krishna. The minute he picked up his flute, they would go into a trance. The sages of Dandaka Aranya were similarly totally captured by the divine beauty of Lord Rama. So these are some examples of Rupa Sakti, where the form itself was so divine that people would get into a trance and ecstasy of bhakti. The third one is called Puja Sakti, which means through your prayers and rituals and through devotional offerings. There are stories of King Amrisha, Goddess Lakshmi, Sri Bharata, and others who immerse themselves in constant worship of the divine self through these humble prayers and rituals, etc. The fourth one is Smarana Sakti. Smarana means through remembrance. And in the Bhagavatam, there are stories about Prahlada, Dhruva, Sanaka, and these four rishis and others who found increasing delight in the constant remembrance of the divine self. So, thinking of it and getting that ecstasy, that feeling of divine love. The fifth one is called Dasya Sakti, Dasya, and that is the Asakti that Hanuman had towards Lord Rama, even though he was skilled and had all kinds of powers and could do wonderful things, yet his heart was very simple. He just wanted to be a servant and follow Lord Rama's orders and be in constant company of Lord Rama. So that is the form of Dasya Sakti. Hanuman, Vidura, Akrura, they were all devotees who adopted the attitude of being a servant of God. So servant is not a negative term here. It's just that you enjoy being in the company of God and trying to do little things to please God. So without the headaches. So just like a maid servant in a palace, she is enjoying all the glories of the palace but does not have to worry about the mortgage. The king has to worry about it. Similarly, God has to worry about all the headaches of running the universe, whereas these devotees are just enjoying God's presence and doing whatever is needed. So the sixth one is called Sakhya Sakti, which means treating God like your friend, like Arjuna, who considered Lord Krishna as his Sakha. Uddhava was another friend of Lord Krishna, boyhood friend, and they loved Lord as a friend. So that is also a perfectly acceptable form of bhakti towards God. The seventh one is called Vatsalya Sakti. So this is treating God as your child, which is a very beautiful thing in the Sanatana Dharma, because a mother does not expect any financial rewards from the child. She just loves the child unconditionally. So this is very beautiful, just like King Dashratha. He loved his son Lord Rama, and Queen Kaushalya, Nanda and Yashodha, they all are examples of asakti, like when Nanda and Yashoda, they gave bringing up Lord Krishna as their child and loved him immensely, and others who loved the divine self as their loving child. So that's the meaning of Vatsalya Sakti. Kanta Sakti means the queens of Krishna loved him as a husband, so basically as a beloved or as your husband. The gopis of Vrindavana also loved him as the supreme beloved. So that is the Kanta Sakti. And number 9 is Atma Nivedana Asakti. Atma Nivedana, it's again examples are Bali, Vibhishana, Hanumanji, which means complete surrender to God. Atma Nivedana, which means you open your heart and give it to God. You don't expect anything back. You just love God more than anything else. So that is Atma Nivedana. Number 10 is Tanmaya Sakti. Tanmaya means you are so absorbed in divine consciousness that you are as if meditating and becoming one. And there are examples like Shukadev ji, who narrated the Srimad Bhagavad Mahapuran to King Parikshat, Sanaka, and others who delighted in being absorbed in divine consciousness. Tanmaya Sakti. And finally, the last one, 11th, is called Parama Viraha Asakti. Param Viraha. Viraha means separation of pain. You are so much in love with your with your God, with the idol divinity, your Ishta Devata, that you cannot even bear a moment of separation from him. So you are constantly remembering him as if you are having a sweet pain in your heart, viraha, pain of separation. So gopis, Arjuna, Uddhava, and others experience this intense pain at their separation from divine Krishna. But that pain would be so intense that they would have tears of bhakti, devotion, and then suddenly they would get the form of Krishna and they would be in ecstasy, and then again they would be in pain waiting for that beautiful form of God Krishna, Lord Krishna. Actually, this is a very high state of devotion. This pain is not like the physical pain that we experience in the world, but the pain of longing for God, which very few people have in this world because of material desires and running after the world. They don't even come close to this experience that the gopis, for example, had. So these 11 types of divine attachments represent the 11 stages of devotion in ascending order. So as you go up the steps, they get higher and higher. He who cannot live without God even for a single moment, which is Viraha Asakti, is established in all the forms of devotion. So experience of Viraha, just like we explained, is the unmistakable sign of intense devotion. So if you start to feel like that, know that you're getting very close and very high in your bhakti and very close to God. So I hope you enjoyed the depth of this sutra, and thank Sage Narada, prostrate to him. Thank Swami Jyotirmayananda ji, prostrate to him. So because these are the divine personalities who are making this spiritual experience possible for us, whereas I am a mere humble instrument just narrating these things that these big huge knowledgeable masters, these divine enlightened masters, have written for us to share and to transmit through our efforts. So all we can do is spread this knowledge and bask in that wisdom and increase our bhakti in the process also. So this is Swami Nikhilananda. More till next time. Om Tat Sat.